Okay. Good evening. Please let us know if you cannot hear us. Welcome to the first Racial Equity Special Committee on Racial Equity. We are having our first meeting of the fiscal year tonight. I wanted to just underscore that we did have a meeting in September planned, but our presenter had a health emergency suddenly. And so we decided to cancel that meeting with HHSS, the Health and Human Services Committee. We did have a joint conversation with them on continuing our conversation on how to combat hate. So since this is the first meeting of the fiscal year, I did want to welcome everyone, and we do have a new committee member, as well as welcome back our existing committee members who have been on the committee for a few years now. So first and foremost, I'm Margaret Della. I'm the chair of SCRE, which we affectionately refer to the Special Committee on Racial Equity. I've been on the board for, I think, about 6 years now, and I've had the pleasure of serving. I think this year I have served on every standing committee, so it's been great to learn about all of the priorities in the community. And this is maybe my third year as the SCRE chair. And so ultimately SCRE, what we try to do is to not necessarily silo conversations on equity and bring all of those conversations where we're trying to discuss how to improve access, amplify multiple voices, and also to increase equity in the district. We don't want to just keep those conversations here, but we want to try to encourage some of the standing committees to have those conversations there and have joint committees. But certainly there are things that sort of like could fall through, to any committee, but if they make sense to host them here at SCRE on their own, that's usually how we handle it. But for instance, we've had several joint committees with HHSS because we've had so much overlapping priorities and wanting to discuss how we can combat hate and other sorts of components that are hindering the quality of life for residents in the district. So that being said, I'll turn it over to my colleague to welcome and to introduce yourself.
This is my fourth year with the Community Board 8. I'm part of the Housing Committee and also Health and Human Services and also the SCRE.
Howdy, my name is Cesar. I am the Vice Chair of the Youth Committee. I sit on Economic Development and also am here. This is my first year.
I'm Bob Bender. I've been on the Community Board. This is my 19th year. I'm on the Land Use Committee and the Parks Committee, and I chair the Special Committee on the Hudson River Greenway.
Emily Buford. I am on the Traffic and Transportation Committee, the Law, Rules, and Ethics Committee, and this is the start of my fourth year on the Community Board, and happy to see Cesar is here.
That's great. And we also have one additional committee member, Adriana Rivera. She's not here yet tonight. Hopefully she'll be joining us, but she won't be here. Okay. But we're looking forward to having her next time. She's a new board member this year, so it's great to have some new faces to add to the conversation that we've been having with several committee members already around the table. Julie, thank you for joining us, and we do have some other guests on the line. Usually, we welcome comments from other board members. We usually call on other board members to speak first after the committee members. And then because this is a community conversation, we also like to hear from community members of what is a priority and what things you'd like to discuss, et cetera. So that's sort of the process. Usually we'll have a conversation, and if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, and after, we, as I mentioned, hear from committee members, and we'll turn it over to those on Zoom. And since there is a requirement for committee members to be in person, all of us are here at the community board office to be a part of this conversation, and then community members can join via Zoom or other board members as well. So I guess I will just say, since we do have a quorum, I'd love to get the approval of the previous meeting minutes from April 2024. Does anyone have any comments, questions on the minutes? Okay, great.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Thank you. Any opposition, abstentions? Great. So it passes unanimously, and we did have a check-in, I believe, in May of 2024, but then because there was so many moving pieces and folks had a hard time getting to the meeting, we ended up just talking through some of the edits to our end-of-year report, our interim report, over email, and so that's something that I did want to highlight. I have mentioned it a few times at the board meetings, that at the end of last fiscal year in June 2024, our SCRE committee published its, I guess, fourth interim report. And so every year we usually take the opportunity, I am just going to share what I'm talking about just so that folks know where to find it. So if you go to the SCRE page, the Special Committee on Racial Equity, if you go to this page as a part of the Community Board homepage, we are under committees, as you can see, and this lays out the overview of SCRE, and this is our adopted statement on sort of the priority of the Community Board and how we encompass diverse community and how we are welcoming and representative of all different communities and people and expressions. Here is where you can find the updated information on committee members, and this is where we keep our ongoing updated documents. So for instance, this is a long-standing document. This is the SCRE resolution that annually authorizes SCRE to operate because we are a special committee. This is our report from June 2024, and within this document, usually every year we take the opportunity to create an executive summary of efforts and issues that came up before the committee, just to highlight what has occurred during the year and just take a special note of sort of the snapshot of where we are at a certain place in time. This also includes, it's sort of an ongoing document, and I feel like I'm using the wrong word, but it's an executive summary of every year that we've submitted the report, and it also includes the initial report that we created in 2020. That was really detailing stats, demographics, the purpose of SCRE, how it fits into the New York City Charter. A whole host of different conversations are all captured in this one document. It also includes an appendix, which includes the capital request map, the list of links to the capital request map, I should say, and links to the committee equity activities. And so really it's a compendium of everything we've done to date. So the capital request map is, I think since fiscal year 2016, we captured where the requests have come from standing committees, CB8 standing committees. And so this maps all of the requests, how they've changed and moved from fiscal 16 to fiscal 2024, and all the priorities that we have within the district, where they fall within the district, and just a couple of notes on them. The committee equity activities are, again, a list of activities by standing committees of the Community Board 8. So this is everything that could be perceived or specifically focuses on how individual committees are working to improve equity within the district. And then lastly, just based on what has transpired over the course of the last calendar year, we've also worked on a resource guide for combating hate. And so I'll take you into this document a little bit. So because hate crimes, not only in the district, as well as, throughout the state and across the country have increased, well, I guess in the district, there are not as overtly reported hate crimes. The Public Safety Committee does track hate crimes, and NYPD reports those hate crimes monthly to the full board of community members. But it is something that is we're increasingly seeing throughout New York State, New York City, and the country. So we wanted to take some action steps and primarily focusing on how to help people understand what a hate crime is. How do they know if they have been exposed to one or if they've been a victim of one? And then primarily this document is about trying to take action. So if you feel as though you have been the victim of a hate crime or you need more information to determine what should be your next steps, we want to give you some outlets here where you can find information. So that includes everything, multiple sources where you can go to get help. So one is the New York Police Department. New York State also has a wealth of resources like the State Attorney General's Office, the city's Human Rights Commission. There are also nonprofits that you can pursue that will help you get resources and perhaps report hate crime. So however you feel comfortable, and then certainly at the federal level, contacting the FBI, et cetera. So there are a wealth of options, and to find the option that feels right for you or feels most comfortable, these are some of the ways in which we wanted to equip residents with information so that they know where to go next. And so ultimately we feel as though mitigating hate crimes is about taking action. So if they're reported, we can take action on it. If there are individuals who have perpetrated crimes against individuals, we want those people to be held accountable. So reporting it is the first way to begin that process. And then there are other things that human beings need to do to cope. So one is about, finding safety. Two, what can you do if you witness a hate crime? Like, how can you be an active witness? Meaning, like, how could you intervene or redirect the conversation? And everything is really geared towards minimizing or mitigating discrimination and potential violence. And of course, lots of people have different ways in which they respond to hate, and that could be something that they're exposed to via like a hate crime, or someone might be the perpetrator of a hate crime. And ultimately, we want to get to the bottom of how people are feeling and why they are pursuing threats against other individuals, and really get people the help that they need. So one is directing people to the mental health support line in New York City. Other ways that you can talk to counselors, and certainly we want to mitigate violence against any individual, including perpetrators. Sometimes that can include severe mental health challenges, including suicide ideation or other kinds of thoughts of violence against oneself or against other people. So we want to give people a lot of opportunities that they can find resources here. Then we want to give people more data about information or about situations in New York City and New York State. These are opportunities to find more information about what's really happening. and other ways that community members can get involved by standing committee. So we have spelled out specific resources for youth, and that includes everything from mitigating hate in schools all the way to anti-bullying toolkits, and other resources along those lines. We also want to be sure that veterans are protected. We know that this is an important aspect of making sure that community members are cared for and that they have resources, and making sure that veterans not only have access to the benefits that they have earned, but also making sure that veterans are safe, and that if they do feel unsafe, if they do feel as though they are going through some mental health challenges or thinking about anything that they might do to hurt themselves or others, that there are options for counselors to talk to someone and to really give people the support that they need and deserve. We also want to be sure that older adults, hate crimes are not just focused on individuals who might be of varying ethnicities or backgrounds or gender expressions. It can also be by someone who is older. And so making sure that there are options to minimize and mitigate elder abuse, and making sure that older adults also know that they are protected and that they have resources at their fingertips, or perhaps people who are looking out for older adults. Again, health and social wellness. HUD also has, a New York State Division of Human Rights also has options if people feel as though they're discriminated against within housing. There are options here. And again, additional information about like governance, rules, and ethics, and all the components that could potentially give you more information. So these are all of these resources are broken down by standing committee topics. So everything from law, rules, and ethics to economic development, environment and sanitation, parks and recreation, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope that this is an informative document for everyone, and the committee put together a lot of work on this, and we've got some positive feedback from the overall board, but I just wanted to spell this out so that everyone who's participating in this call, or perhaps will join us at a future point in time, knows where to go for information, and we'd love additional resources that are not already captured here. So again, this document is here under the Community Board 8 in the Bronx, our website, committees, Special Committee on Racial Equity. Here's the resource guide. And I think that captures the things that I wanted to explain. This is our agenda for the evening. So that captures what I wanted to go over for a welcome back, chair's report. Thank you all for indulging me with that. I think it's particularly necessary that we talk about this, and that we have the option of finding resources and taking action against hate. So, welcome comments.
Yeah.
Please.
So first of all, Margaret, it's an incredible document. I mean, the amount of information that's in there, the links to all the different agencies and that sort of thing. It's an enormously valuable document, and I hope. I'm not sure everybody on the board realizes that it exists, and you know, especially newer members of the board. And I think this is something we should bring up at the board meeting next week, that, you know, make sure everybody knows about it. I also, I don't think, when the document was first created, there is now a New York City Veteran Services department, and I don't believe it's on there because I don't believe it existed. It's only come into existence recently. I'll find the link and send it to you. But I mention this because it was a Veterans Day event down at the Memorial Grove on Sunday, and the commissioner of New York City Veteran Services was there, who, by the way, lives in Riverdale.
Okay.
So that's one more entity for people to know about. You know, because veterans, there are a lot of problems with veterans, particularly suicide is a big problem with veterans. So the
Mhm.
more resources we have, I think, the better.
Okay. Is it just vetsconnectnyc.org or something else?
You know, I haven't looked at the document in a while. I'll check that again tonight,
Okay.
okay? And see if that's it. That may be the link to the Veteran Services. If it is, then it's covered. And if it isn't, then I'll find the link and send it to you.
Okay, that sounds good, and I'll
Yeah.
add it. Yeah, now that you're jogging my memory, I feel like hopefully there's something that we mentioned last time. I don't know if I captured it, but it's
Mhm.
gone in my long-term memory.
Well, you know, as I said,
Yeah, if you-
either it
thank
is
you.
already in there or we'll find it and add it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Kelly, did you want to say something?
No. Bob shared my sentiments. Wanted to thank you for all your hard work in putting this together and in steering us. And it is really a great document, and it should be shared with everyone, and we can just share it over and over and over again, because people don't attend every meeting, so
Yeah.
it may be helpful to continually provide the information when you're presented.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you for that. Anyone else?
Just one suggestion, if we can put the link onto our social media for Community Board 8. The community have access to it, ultimately we
Yeah.
want the community to know that this is available.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret, it's a great document, great resource.
You all created it, I just put it on paper. Julie, did you want to say something?
Hi, yes, great documents. I'm wondering, Bob and Margaret, is the website you're thinking of the newyorkcity.gov/veterans, where it has all the information on the veterans?
Could be.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I know the commissioner mentioned a whole bunch of different contacts, and I believe it was New York City, like nyc.gov/veterans.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
So I'll look, into that. I don't know how I just swore I had it before, but I must have changed it. Okay.
Or
Yeah,
maybe
I'll
the
go in
website
Website
changed.
change.
Yeah, that can happen too.
Could be.
Mhm.
Okay. Cesar, anything?
Thoughts on translations, question mark? Because if this is a resource for all the people that live here, and a good portion of the folks in my side of the community board don't speak English, this is not a resource for them.
Well, I'd like to, I mean, we can, create like a Google Translate toggle at the top, because I know it's more than just Spanish.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a awesome resource that doesn't require someone to translate the entire document for us. But definitely we should highlight, the Google
Yeah, just like.
Translate.
Something that's like, because
Yeah.
for a lot of the languages, Google, that people speak, Google does a good enough job, because those
Yeah.
are the most common ones, but just like,
I do not know if we could create this into a pamphlet or something when we do events, when we distribute tough information.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. We
We
could
have
put
housing re-
Spanish and English one, and we can
Yeah.
distribute, yeah.
Yeah, we have resource guides on housing, on aging.
Yeah.
This would really be a great subject to have a resource guide. Yeah.
And I could start with, like a flyer, just to include like a QR code. It could have a couple of our main languages, like English, Spanish, Bengali, French. I think those are our primary languages, in the district. But I could have that, a couple of those lines just to guide people, and that people can then access the document and toggle or do the drop down with Google Translate, that it can take them to whatever language. It doesn't just have to be one of those four. But I can create a draft and then show you guys. Okay. Great. Thank you for that suggestion. That's awesome. Anyone else, online or otherwise? Okay. So, next, before I get to the planning with health and hospitals. I did want to mention that there is, oh no, it's old business, I have to stay on this, all right. Planning with health, hospitals, and human services. As I mentioned, we had a joint conversation planned for September, and that went by the wayside because of a challenge that our presenter had. We did want to circle back to this and see what we want to do. It's incredibly difficult, I think, to bring people together to talk about this issue. We had wanted to focus on racial equity, asking for help from the mayor's office of racial equity. We did have a presenter who could speak to sort of grievance and retaliation that drives hate crimes and other kinds of violence, political violence. But that person probably is not available until the spring because of the medical emergency. And then, you know, looking at what else we might want to discuss with HHSS. Are there other things that we want to discuss, or are there other things that we want to focus on for the year?
I would say, Margaret, it would be ideal to have a joint meeting with health, hospitals, and social services. But if that makes it too complicated, why don't we go ahead on our own and try to get a speaker to come in, you know, whether it's to speak about hate or other issues that we deal with. But I think that those conversations, I think, are always good to have when you have somebody who has expertise in an area that the committee is dedicated to. And as I say, the ideal would be to make it a joint meeting, but that makes everything very complicated. So,
Yeah.
you know, I would suggest, why don't we see what we can do on our own?
Okay.
And then in the spring, when the other speaker is available, you know, maybe then we can have the joint meeting that we've been talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and the mayor's office did have some transition, so we were trying to get a speaker from that office, but I don't know if the position has been filled yet, so I'll take a look on that.
There may be a nonprofit in the Bronx that's doing some of this same work. I know somebody that I've talked to about this, and I'm fuzzy on the details, so I don't want to get any deeper into it, but I'm going to talk to somebody and see if, you know, there's a non-governmental entity that could perhaps provide a speaker.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on speakers that or topics we might want to have a part of this joint or other conversation?
I don't know about the joint one, but I believe, I think it's important for people to educate the community on where free speech ends and hate starts.
Mm.
It's a very thin line.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it is relevant in the current climate with, you know, the wars going on and political climate and everything. It's a very thin line, and people really do not understand where one ends and the other one starts. So maybe that's a topic that someone is an expert on it and can come and give us some information on that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Do you think like a lawyer?
I do not know, maybe someone from a university. I do not know who is someone who's worked in this field for a while, who knows. We could research and find out who is the best person to speak on this.
That sounds good. Any other thoughts or topics? Okay. Everybody's quiet online. Great. So,
I have a thought, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out if it's old business or new business, which seems silly. Why don't I just tell you what it is? You know, we're going to be starting the budget process again, which we do every year, as people who've been on the board for a while know. And for the past few years, Margaret, we've made the point to everybody when we do the budget process that one of the factors in identifying the budget needs should be equity. You know, we should be looking at our budget suggestions to make sure that we're addressing every part of the community. You know, we're not just talking about Riverdale, we're also talking about Kingsbridge, Kingsbridge Heights, or vice versa. So I think that's, you know, because I'm confident that next week David Gilman is going to tell all of the chairs, make sure you start on the budget process. And I think that would be a good opportunity to say, and make sure as you think about the budget process that you're looking at the community as a whole and making sure that, you know, your budgetary requests do reflect the entire community board district.
Does that count as old business or new business?
I don't know, but there it is. So,
Is that what I think?
yeah.
Say it's both. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, what's old is new.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, great. Any other last thoughts on, yeah?
It could actually be new business, because we have action.
Yeah, so that's why action steps, and I'm like, I'm gonna just hold it for right now.
We're lighthearted. No egos in this.
That's right. Okay, excellent. The other thing I wanted to comment on, and I will provide a link to the New York City ballot proposal, which included the Equal Rights Amendment.
Mhm.
So that was included within the November 5th, 2024 election, and this did pass. So this is something that adds anti-discrimination provisions to the state constitution, covers ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, and sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, and pregnancy. It also covers reproductive health care and autonomy. So this is an important aspect of protecting individuals' rights in New York State. And so it's important that the community is aware of what these protections are. And I'll provide a link in the minutes to this ballot initiative. There were also a series of other ballot initiatives that include a number of other priorities. I'm not sure that they necessarily fit into SCRE, but I'll include those as well. Any comments on the ERA amendment?
I do have one. If you watch television, you saw the ads from the group that was opposed to it, and the phrase that they constantly highlighted was national origin. Mm-hmm. And there was an allegation that, well, this would open the door to people voting who are not citizens. But if you look at the statement on the community board website about discrimination, it includes the phrase national origin. Mm-hmm. So it's a phrase that's been around for a long time. It's accepted. You know, we're not supposed to discuss politics here, but since it's all over and it's passed and all of that, mm-hmm. It was pretty much a bogus issue that was raised. Discrimination on the basis of national origin is not permitted, mm-hmm. and it will now be in the Constitution.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps we can get someone who could speak to the ERA, or sort of what implications it might have beyond the ballot, if any, or sort of what it means for New York City residents.
Yeah, I was about to say, does it actually change anything if you're reliving for us that live here?
I don't know that it changes anything. I'm sorry, did you want to? I don't know that it changes anything, but what it does do is it makes these provisions part of the state constitution.
Yeah.
That gives them a greater legal standing than simply a law. The Constitution is a much more powerful document than an ordinary law. Not that an ordinary law is not important, but, you know, there have been, to take an example, there have been several states in which new legislation has been passed about abortion, for example, but it sometimes contradicted what was in that state's constitution, and when the issue went to court, the judges have been consistently saying you can't pass a law that violates the state constitution. So it does enhance the protections.
Yeah, like that's more of a enhances like more the legality of the protections, but like the actual protection, it's the actual what is granted by those protections. And I'm saying this is someone that spends too much of their time not in New York City, in some place that does not have these protections already. Like the actual protections itself does not change.
No,
New York or city already has these protections as a law.
Yes, I'm sure everything that was on that ballot was already protected under New York City law.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's true everywhere else in the state, and this was a state proposal. So,
Yeah.
and it amends the state constitution. So as a practical matter, I don't know that it changes anything for anybody living in New York City, but if something happens nationally, we've got stronger protections in our state.
Thank you for that. One thing I wanted to mention, well, perhaps I could amend the agenda. I also wanted to highlight that, can I amend the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
What are you amending?
As long as we're out by 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Do not have the emotional bandwidth to do any late night meetings.
We could be out by 8.
One, that there is a fellowship application upcoming. So it's called We Are All Brooklyn, Fellowship Against Hate. And this is an opportunity where individuals can participate, and I'll also include the link in the minutes. But this is a fellowship to engage in anti-hate work, community building, and building bridges across our communities. So it's focused on mid to senior level full-time professionals in the nonprofit, faith-based, or government organization serving New York City, and that individuals have a demonstrated record of promoting inclusion and diversity, and is dedicating their time to improving and serving diverse communities in New York City. So it's an effort through the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. And again, I'll include a link to it. It's also affiliated with the Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes in New York City. And again, this application deadline for people to participate is November 25th. We also had an opportunity for, and I think this was sent around in the September meeting agenda, but there was a survey for the Commission on Human Rights requesting New York City residents to participate in the survey entitled Understanding New Yorkers' Experiences with Discrimination. And so I believe that survey has closed, but if anyone needed to contact the New York City Commission on Human Rights, there's an opportunity through the resource guide, and also you can call 212-416-0197 to provide any context or report any cases, or just to ask general questions about the survey or providing your input. So then lastly, I wanted to get to some of the action steps for the upcoming year. Considering the world today, do we have any way to narrow the scope of our work this year?
Do you have something in mind?
No.
Okay.
Does someone bring us together? Actually, I do have some things. I mean, I really would love to focus on how we are, building bridges across community, across people who differ in opinion, and do it in a way that perhaps just is focused on increasing connection and contact and connectivity, sort of focusing on building the social fabric, if you will. I mean, that's one of my thoughts on like how do you minimize violence and hate and, you know, all the things that come along with it, is if people know each other and if people are connected to each other. How do people get through tough times is by building community over chaos, and how can we build ways in which we could contribute to building that social fabric. I think we have some action steps. I think we have a lot of talented individuals in the community that have discussed the implications of hate and how to minimize hate. And of course, we'd love for standing committees to take on the specific areas that we've outlined in the Combating Hate Resource Guide. But I also think there's some things that we didn't include in that resource guide because or we didn't necessarily expand on them. I think there's some brief portion, but it's also about the arts and about creativity and connectivity, and how the arts can transport us without us even knowing it. So I don't know what you all think about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about arts, it could just be about convening people.
Probably maybe our last event or our last meeting of the year. Perhaps we have like a community event sponsored by SCRE. At an outside venue in one of the parks. I mean, we have several parks at our disposal. So perhaps that's something, and it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It could just be a matter of, you know, having a quick, I hate to use this word barbecue, but you get the idea. Where people just come and commune with each other. Some chips, some water, stuff like that. Just make it inviting. I know that there are a number of committee events throughout the year, and a number of staple permits that the board approves each year, but none of them are really coming from the community board. It's coming from organizations within the community. So I think that would be a way to help us. Instead of just tabling at some of these other, events, I think we need a dedicated event, and that can be our last event for the year.
I'm wondering about, a lot of the ethnic or racial or religious hatred starts with younger people. It starts in school. We've had incidents where graffiti's been on playground equipment and that sort of thing. And I wonder if we shouldn't be doing something or trying to do something either with the youth committee or the education committee, both of which work with younger people. The kids, a lot of times kids do this just stupidly, not only because, they heard something or they thought it was cool, or, it's ignorant. And it's not really hatred, so much as it is stupidity.
Executive function is not fully developed.
Yeah, exactly, or somebody's trying to impress somebody else.
Yeah.
They think, this is a way to do it. I just wonder if we couldn't be doing or shouldn't be doing something more in that area.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just formulating this right now. As I say, it could be the youth committee, it could be the education committee.
Mhm.
But, I think it, might be nice to try to, zero in a little bit on younger people and see what we could do there.
Yeah. And I did speak with the chair of the committee last fiscal year, and just by the nature of the timing of our conversation, she did raise it, and youth members were interested.
This is Julia.
And so, I can pick that back up with Ramdot and see what we may want to do. Like, maybe there's some youth events, or maybe something like that we could ask them to facilitate. Part of what I was thinking of, I just like flashback to one of the Kingsbridge Armory events where you have like a community conversation piece, and like people are writing what they envision or what they want to see, or what, something special about the area that they really love, and they're just like writing little notes. And so maybe youth could help us with that. We could create something that could be kept here and hung up, or they might facilitate a conversation. Or I've also seen there are like sort of picking up their off of their idea, but some of the daylighting of Tibbetts Brook, there's some effort in which they create like a visual or sort of a quilt or something like that. Yeah, of the area in Van Cortlandt Park. And so it's really just like how everyone has a piece of creating a work of art together. So, potentially something like that, just a way to have a visual representation of what we want to see in our community. Anything else you might add?
I think it's important that we have dialogue, open dialogue with the problem is when people take it to social media, or people like to hide their identity and express their hate. I think dialogues can help if people can come in and openly discuss there, and it's very difficult to do that because people can do it easily with a different name on a social media and can go to the platforms and express their hate, and in the morning they could be a different person, and so it's a very difficult task to get people together and talk about it, but I don't know if we can make an attempt. And
I think we can, we can start somewhere. Yeah.
And maybe the somewhere we start is by having, a community event, and we have different tables, different ethnicities represented, there, and we, just genuinely talk, right? Because a lot of people are missing that. So many people are, I don't want to say homebound, but they don't leave their homes, right? For fear of going outside and things of that nature. So it may be beneficial to have.
yeah. And the other thing is like with equity, right? I do not know if we would ever get this data, but it would be nice to know how many cases of discrimination, right? Not just hate crime. How many people file cases of getting fired from a job based on gender, pregnancy, right? Where do they have this information? I'm pretty sure that people.
Oh, yeah.
So if we collect for our community board and we could see a trend, right? And if that data is available, I think it would be worth analyzing it and seeing if that. Not every claim is true, we know that, but at least we could see. I think that data is important, right? If it is trending downwards, the work that we do is having some kind of impact. Or if it is not trending upwards, maybe we should approach it differently.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if the data, I mean, certainly when it crosses the line into a crime, that data is available, but, you know, what you're talking about is.
No, I'm just not focusing on the hate, I'm talking about the committee itself, because we are for equity purposes, right? So,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
not focusing on the hate part.
Mm-hmm, all right. Oh, well, there are some ideas for you, Margaret.
I finished,
But I do have also a couple of thoughts. Also,
Yeah,
because
please.
This is also my job,
Hmm?
specifically, how do you build bridges across community? And again, the hardest part is what Sebastian was saying, is like, how do you actually have these genuine dialogues with people? Especially when it's like the non-negotiables that two sides have, like that different people have, make it impossible, like they're non-negotiables contradict and conflate with each other. Having like that active visual, similar to the Together for Kingsbridge, is useful, because it is the fact that it's like, hey, like everyone, and I'm trying not to say parts of my job, because I'm trying to stay more apolitical, non-politically. But hey, like hearing like even the commonalities between like, hey, people on both sides wrote similar statements of why we voted for the same person. It's like, hey, so like fundamentally at the core, y'all want X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. And it's like, how do we use that as like the actual lever and mechanism for understanding? Hey, it's like, what does, if y'all are saying that these are the foundations of like what you would want the future to be, and that's sentiment that's shared across all these neighborhoods, and how do you then develop, like, use that as the actual grounding foundation for like, hey, these budget proposals should look a certain way based on what people are saying, and not, oh, we made these things because at the committee meeting, the only person that goes to the committee meeting says this thing that directly benefits their organization, that excludes everyone else that doesn't come to these meetings, or any host of reasons, including the fact that this is a small room, and not everyone knows that this meeting exists. Also, to understatement of the chair or the vice chair of youth, and as someone that works with the youth in every single job I've had since being here, stab at this. Where do youth get? Because if we're saying that youth are the ones doing it, where do youth learn that from? Yeah. It's like, it's very rarely that it's like they're learning it at the school, but so much often it's like you either learn it at home or the other place for a lot of folks when they get to like, or for a lot of men we're seeing more, it's like on podcasts. And it's like on
Gaming.
like a lot of more of the parasocial relationships that it's had, because of the fact it's like, do we actually have spaces for folks to do this, like to actually interact and have fun in person? Like some of the gaming stuff is like, yeah, like gaming is a good space to be in, but how do you actually create more of these like third spaces where people can actually be in community with each other sans agenda? Like people want to come, I'm going to be a little biased because I'm Dominican, people want to have like a Domino's event that's like breaking bread and playing games. It's like, yeah, that's a fantastic way to create these bonds and have a lot of these crossovers, especially looking at election results. It's like there is wide disparities in what people believe. So it's like actually having more and being able to create and facilitate these third spaces across also the different committees as well. Like Parks and Recreation is a big space. Youth is a big space. This can be, even aging is a big space that this can be in, and having also the intergenerational events as well. I also want to highlight the big thing that you said, Sebastian, about like what is the actual equity that we were talking about when we're saying like racial equity? Because as we're saying a lot of this is hate, and it's like, great, sure, we understand, and we saw from the last elections like hate crimes did go up at the spur of the 2016 election. So like what is that framework of like, yes, this is what we mean by when we say the equity portion of equity, that's not just we are stopping hate, like we are trying to reduce hate crimes. Like, there's equity that can be, like, broader racial equity that can be seen, thinking about HSSS, it's like, hey, like, what does the Black maternal mortality rate look like in this area, and if it's certain percentage higher than the white death rate, why is those happening? Areas around, like, hey, just 311 incident rates with regards to, like, housing, and, like, the racial disparities with that in our neighborhoods, redlining, the racial disparities with that in our neighborhoods. So it's like, what, particularly, like, the equity portion that we're looking at. And definitely, yes, like, this is very much a visible, or still a visible thing that's, like, within the next year, we can see that this hate crimes are going to continue going up. And also, what's the other side? Like, this is, some of these are like, we're fighting back, some of these are, we're building forward. I'll pause at that.
And what you said made me think that there's also some presentations we've had in the past that maybe we want to highlight them on the SCRE webpage. I know that they're already captured under, you know, the meeting or the minutes or different things like that, or the YouTube links, et cetera, but at least like for the maternal health conversation, you know, we could link to that and name it as such so people actually know that this conversation was held and like get some resources, not that it's just like, okay, this was the 11th, this was the 12th meeting, this was the blah, blah, blah.
And also because not everyone might know which meeting exactly, it's like that. Yeah, we've been there already this. Great.
So, I forgot that you were on the youth committee, so can you talk around that?
Yeah.
Yay, one last thing.
Great.
One last thing for Margaret.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, anything else you think we should, discuss or highlight?
Now, one other thing. We started this conversation, it was actually Sebastian who started it, about the name of the committee. Because we are broader than racial equity. And I started thinking, and I was trying to come up with all kinds of things, and then I thought, you know, why don't we just say Special Committee on Equity? You know? And that seems to me to encompass the broader range of what we're talking about. And, you know, and it's, E sounds as good as SCRE. You know, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. So I wanted to bring it up again because, you know, as I say, our portfolio is actually more diverse than the name of the committee suggests. So I personally would like to see us do that. I think it's a good idea, but, you know, it's up to everybody to decide that.
Have no objection, but the board would have to approve that, correct?
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, in any case, we should bring it to the board.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think Bob said because I think at the time when the committee was formed, I was not part of the community board, I believe. There was a reason behind it being a racial equity committee, but I think our discussions are much broader now. And I think the name should reflect that. I just have one suggestion. I think, especially with the youth, right, educating, this came up with, you know, I have a 10-year-old, and there was a conversation about a particular singer. And, you know, I was driving, and he told me, like, I hate this singer. So I told him, why are you using the word hate? You have the right to like the singer or dislike the singer, but when you use the word hate, it is a pretty strong word, right? But I think, you know, unconsciously we use the word hate. describe things that should be like or dislike. And more we use the word hate, I think it more gets like, it becomes a normal word, right? I think, maybe I do not know how we could do it, but I think use of the word hate, for everything that we, I hate this food, or I hate this song, and instead of like or dislike. I think there's some relationship to that, to how we see hate, right?
I think it's funny you say this, because I had this conversation with my daughter, I don't know, a year or so ago. I've got grandchildren, and when the youngest one was like 5 years old, she had her friends, and she either loved her friend or she hated her friend, because, they just had some argument over something. And it's how kids start out, because their vocabulary is limited, and, they love everything or they hate everything. So it's really part of the process of maturing, that you begin to realize, well, there's more diversity to opinions and attitudes than love and hate, like and dislike, that sort of thing. So it's part of the process of growing up, but it certainly doesn't hurt to, educate kids about the greater range of human emotion beyond love and hate. I understand exactly what you're saying. I think it hopefully happens over time, but unfortunately for some people, it doesn't really happen over time. It happens way too slowly.
Yeah, I think because we use it so often to use it for like and dislike, and that
We overuse it.
yeah, we overuse it, and it becomes part of our vocabulary,
Yeah.
consciously.
No, it's a good point, to make everybody a little more conscious of the fact that these words are powerful words, and, we want to be careful how we use them.
Words matter.
Yeah, they do. They do.
I think people forget that.
Mhm.
And then once you speak it, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think before.
And I think that's,
Yeah.
especially in schools and all, that's where the bullying and all those things coming from, that use of the word hate has a lot of impact on.
A lot of it comes from, unfortunately, a lot of the kids today have access to mediums that we didn't have growing up. So they get a lot of their information from social media and from their peers. They've always gotten it from their peers, but now their peers are in the middle of class. They're forwarding, Instagram material, Snapchat, all of these things, TikTok videos that are not helpful to society, and it certainly isn't helpful for them achieving their goal for the day, which is obtaining an education, right, from their teachers who are being paid to teach them. So it's really, I don't envy parents today, I will say that, because they have a lot of challenges to contend with. No one lives in a silo. Children don't go out and play anymore, right? Everyone is playing in front of a video game. I shouldn't say everyone. Many are playing in front of a video game. Or, they're watching TikTok videos. So they don't go outside. That's the reason why also we have a rise in childhood diabetes, because kids are not active. They're sedentary, and all of it is related.
The longer we sit here, Margaret, the more issues.
So my 11 o'clock is becoming popular.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's part of the youth thing, is like doing some, part of coping, right, with stressors and other things is like you really have to burn it. You have to burn that negative energy or sort of anxiety or whatever. It's not the end all be all, but like human beings have to burn it. And you have to get that out of your system. So whether it's playing, or some people run, or bike, or whatever. So I think there is a component of health that we need to focus on, and it's not just like change up and go outside for your own mental health, but it's also like you gotta burn this stuff that makes you feel bad about yourself or the world or whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be great to.
So maybe that's what we need to focus on with HHSS.
How do you handle, the stress and,
Mm-hmm.
Digital detox.
yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
There's a digital detox challenge.
mm-hmm.
And, yeah, there's a real science behind this stuff.
Me personally, I find many social media sites. I am not even on them.
I've recently deleted mine.
I might be the only person in the world who's not in a nursing home who's on no social media whatsoever. Zero.
One of my best friends is on zero.
Okay,
I
good.
think you're better off for it, yeah.
If it were not for LinkedIn, I would say I had no social media
Oh, yeah, yeah.
platforms, but beyond that, I
I'm
don't.
gonna find you, I'm gonna troll you. No.
Good luck with that, I don't look at that either. But I'm not on Facebook or any of those other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the outlier. I'm here the outlier, because, again, my day job is, I am a professional organizer. Social media is also one of the most valuable tools for
Absolutely.
organizing, for dissemination.
No,
There's a purpose.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
dissemination of information. One of the biggest things that we learned, especially.
No, I understand there's a positive side to it, yeah.
Yeah, so, and also what we're saying, like, how to handle stress, how to handle detox, it's like, kids have not lived in a war where the United States has, I was gonna say unofficially declared a war, 'cause we haven't not gone through any legal processes of declaring war, but none of them have existed in a lifetime where war has not existed and been prevalent in the minds of the United States. None of them have existed in a world with increasingly high policing in their schools, increasingly high policing in their day-to-day life, where it's like every facet of their life is now even more highly politicized. And like that is a bigger, then it's like, they're spending time gaming. It's like every moment they are being policed.
Mhm.
Like, again, I work, or as part of my job, work with a lot of youth, and when they tell me, hey, the school that I'm in has 20 police officers and 0 guidance counselors.
Mm. Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Like goof off, like take your time to goof off, and then it's like, oh, the parks also are like being more policed now, or hey, it takes 2 years, gonna take like 2 years to fix this park, so we don't have spaces, do anything. It's like, yeah, of course they're gonna be on socials, because that is, and also the fact that kids have to go through like active shooter
Yeah.
drills. It's like, yeah, there is no space where they're like, I am safe. So it's like, of course, also parents are gonna be like, inside is a significantly safer space than you being outside. The other converse.
But there's being inside and interacting with your child, which a number of parents do not do.
Which is a conversation we should have, which is a conversation that we should then translate into the parentage, instead of having this conversation of like social detox for kids. It's like change it to the conversation of the parentage. Because this entire conversation has been.
A lot of students have expressed the desire to detox. Also, it's not only about the parent, it's about the students as well. And actually, when they've done it for some of the schools that I'm aware of, where the students, you know, for a weekend or what have you, did not pick up their devices, they said they were better for it, because it forced them to do other things. They were more creative, and they weren't relying on that. But that was a pact that they made amongst themselves, because they realized that their lives were, I don't want to say the word spiral, but they were getting too attached to the
Mhm.
device instead of attached to people.
Mm-hmm.
Same way
Which is
as,
different.
yeah, and I think where we can view it similar to addiction, and I'm gonna just be clear, most,
It is.
I'm gonna be
That's
real,
why they started pushing back in the federal government when someone finally woke up and they wanted to make it an issue and hold the, social media companies accountable for some of the ways they push the data out. There, so
Mhm.
it's happening
Mhm.
in that respect.
So did we have a consensus on changing the name of the committee?
I think so.
Yeah, I thought we did.
I think we had a consensus, and then also said, hey, it has to come to the full,
No, yeah.
like, anyways, but I think in here we
I'll
did
follow
come.
up with Julie on that.
Yeah. And Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save me from a follow-up, Julie. Julie, is that permitted?
It's a special committee, so Marty's also, oh, he left.
Yeah,
Um,
Marty, yeah, I was gonna say, if Marty was still here, I would just be like, Marty, you,
it is a special committee. I'm not sure on it, and I don't think you'd want my opinion because I would be against it. Because there was a reason why it was formed for racial reasons, and a person of color, I don't see much change. So me personally, I will vote against it, but I'm not in your committee, so I can actually give my opinion. But that's something,
Okay.
whether I agree or not, it's still, I'll double check with Marty on what to process it and let the board decide. But you won't have my support. There's too much that went into why we created the racial aspect of it. And now as chair, looking at the board differently, like visiting different sites, I just find it astounding that things really haven't changed in all these years. I go to one part of our district, the parks are a shamble. I go to another park, I feel like I'm in Manhattan or out of state. And it goes by which neighborhoods you're in, what part of the district you're in, and it does come down to racial inequities. I don't see a change. Yeah, there's a very slight change, but I don't see a change. And I lived in both
Okay.
parts of the district, what they call down the hill and up the hill. I lived in both of them for 20 years. And I really don't see. Look, Bob, when you came, remember I used to bug you about, and you did a fantastic job. You said you were on the board 19 years, and I was pleading,
yeah.
keep on top of the bathrooms at the Fort Ford Park. And that was 20 years ago when you came. And it happened before you came, and you continued and you fought for it. They claim that the bathrooms may be fixed this year or next year. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, when I walk around
That,
Riverdale, the bathrooms are perfect in the parks. I don't,
that project has finally happened, Julie.
right, but the bathrooms are still not completed. I was
No,
just,
but it's under construction.
right, for over 20
Yeah.
years, when you joined the
But
board,
I totally agree with you. It took way too long. It was ridiculous. Yes.
and that to me is part of the racial inequalities that we still have within the city. It's not just our board. So I would not be a supportive of changing the name for many reasons.
Okay, all right, no, that's, that's a perfectly, good articulation of your point of view, and I understand it totally.
But I'll check with Marty on the process and let you know, and you guys move forward with it. Because I do support the committee.
Okay.
And can I speak as
Thanks a lot, Julie.
Okay.
speak as a member in the community? I agree with what Julie is saying, because I'm from Texas and I see it everywhere. So the fact of changing the name is not putting it right out front. This is what we're coming to deal with. This is what's going on. This is what we see, and this is what we're going to attack. I don't know what other name you all may be thinking of coming up with, but I think the name you have, get straight to the point and let them know what we're here to come up against.
Okay.
Yeah. And, this conversation has come up many a time with other board members, and the thing that I've always said is that the foundation of discrimination always begins with race, and that's not unique to the United States. But there's a profound history, focusing on race and all the discriminations, all the other, age, ability, et cetera, that all, stems from this inherent, focus on race, and so, that's why I've always pushed back to say, yes, we talk about everything so broadly, but the foundation is racial equity. The foundation is racial inequity, and we're trying to increase equity in the district. So context-wise, I know many board members have pushed back on that over the course of the last 4 years or whatever. So I just want to reiterate that, because others may come back and say, yeah, we should do it. So I'm happy to have that conversation at a board meeting if you feel as though we'd like to discuss this further, Julie. But, you know, certainly we'll wait to hear from you as to what Marty says. Or if we want to table it, you all let me know what you think.
I just have to say that I'm very proud of everyone in that room, because you guys fight for the whole community. And that's the purpose of that committee, to fight for all of the whole community. And you guys have done wonderful. And Margaret, I know you went there screaming and hollering when we put you up as chair, but you're fantastic. Thank you all.
Because I don't want any more paperwork, that's well, thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear, we'll put it into the notes so that we can record what the process is if at any point the conversation comes up again. And we'll wait to hear on that, and we'll bring it up next time. Okay, so, I think we've got a bunch of next steps. One, I'm gonna follow up on the nycveterans.gov page. I'm going to create a flyer with a QR code and some language that will translate the Combating Hate resource. We're also going to look into potentially speakers who focus on the mayor's office of racial equity, free speech, and where's the line between free speech and hate. A potential speaker on the recently passed ballot initiative focusing on the ERA and what additional implications it might have. And then focusing, just a technicality, bring some of the YouTube links where we have presenters with topical information like maternal health and other kinds of issues that have come before the committee at some point in time, and focus those to the SCRE, or replicate them to the SCRE page so that, and that they're titled by the topic, just so that folks have an easier time of finding conversations that we've had that are really relevant. Then we're going to reiterate the budget and recapping how we've elevated the discussion on equity in the previous fiscal year, and that as the new budget conversations begin anew, that we'll be emphasizing equity to be the top priority that committees use as a vetting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not only vetting within their committee, but vetting on the list of priorities for the entire community board, if I hear that right. Okay. Then we want to focus on convening people and what might that look like. So focusing on what is the future that we want to see, what does the community really want? Focusing on youth, creating open dialogues, creating a space for a digital detox, some health, perhaps collaborating with HHSS on digital detox and spurring healthy activities or fun things like that. Creating a public convening where that might be its own barbecue, or we're creating art, or maybe, we think about some way that we're creating social relationships outside of social media, outside of, as Cesar put it, like in that third space, outside of work and home and et cetera, et cetera. And then the last thing I think that I have here is that we're gonna find the EEOC data on discrimination, see what it tells us. anything else that we've thought, or,
We can also try the AGs, but they should probably have
Okay.
some information.
okay,
Lily.
And I wanted to look into whether there is, which I think there is, some sort of borough-wide nonprofit that's dealing with the issues of hate, trying to combat it. So I'm going to follow up on that.
okay.
Yeah. And I'll let you know, of course.
The other thing I missed is that we're also going to perhaps just, explore how maybe youth and adults and everybody are desensitized to the word hate, and to encourage a dialogue in which people think before they speak, or sort of be more sensitive and be more conscientious of, using that word only when it's needed. Okay. Julie, anything else or Monique, any other things you'd like for us to put on our agenda, or any other ideas that you all have?
No, you guys are great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any last thoughts, Monique? We're so happy to have you here tonight. Anything else you want to share with us? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was it. I'm in agreement with everything else. You all have a good
Okay,
night.
great.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Have a good night. Okay, well, it is 8:24. Thanks for everyone staying a little bit longer. Then I think our next meeting will be either January or February. I'm not sure which. Hopefully January, because sometimes getting started in November feels so late. But we definitely have May, March, January. That should be the way that it goes. May, March, January. January, March, May.
Right.
We understood.
Yeah, we could rearrange it.
You know what?
All right, motion to adjourn. Thank you all for being here tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.